Hello, dear colleagues. My name is Nikolai Saunin. We will have several speakers, and I will be the one to begin the presentation. I would like to thank the organizers for the event. It is a highly relevant challenge at our times. Nikolai, please mind your speech pace. Thank you. Yes. We called our presentation Forced to Develop How to Effectively Change an Organization. We're going to present the approach that we're applying at the GAS group, and we'll speak about the inspiring results of our work. The presented report describes the results of a 3-year work on tree stools adaptation for their use in a corporate environment. Our team consists of people with competencies in various fields: technical trees, organizational and managerial trees, and change management expertise. Also, all of the participants have experience in managing their own businesses, which is also quite important. Our report consists of 4 blocks. Block number 1 is titled Challenges and Harmfulness of Innovation. Let's focus on this a little bit. In 2019, at a conference in Minsk, at the TRIS summit, Alexey Fomenko and I pointed out in our report that corporations, along with the traditionally existing functions, such as financial, commercial, legal, etc., feature a new integral regular function. This function is adaptation to constant changes in the external environment. We have entered an era when the world has only one constant characteristic, and the business had to adapt to all those changes on a continuous basis and not operationally. Traditionally, change management was always a strategic block, and in the second part of our report, we will speak about the existing best practices of strategic management. In an ever-changing world, a corporation faces 2 challenges. First, the classical vertical management model ceases to work when decisions are made at the top by some strategists and are executed at the bottom. This is no longer optional because the signal from the above passes through all of the bureaucratic mechanisms and too much time is lost. So the first challenge for corporations is to learn to delegate managerial decision making to lower hierarchy levels. But transferring this right isn't enough. To remain manageable, we must ensure the appropriateness of decisions made. So we need a transferable methodology to provide transparent control over these procedures. The second challenge is that any innovation requires initiative. So we need to create points of initiative on all hierarchical layers of our company. At the same time, simultaneously, the company must be ready to transform at each point, at each layer, to keep pace with the changing requirements to this particular point. And managers should be drivers of this innovation. But there are always some buts. The first but is that in a company where work is assessed by results, again, Nikolai, please slow down a little bit. We are providing simultaneous interpretation into English and Chinese. The first but is that in a company where work is assessed by its results, innovation is harmful for managers at all levels. This happens for 3 reasons. Reason 1 is that any innovation has only a small probability of success and a very high probability of failure. Therefore, a leader sets the least ambitious objectives, the least risky ones, and coordinates them with their superiors. After all, each manager has bonuses they'd hate to lose, and they sometimes include something they've already achieved as the target for next year. Reason 2 is that our managers are working at the limit of their efficiency. In the value system of the lean methodologies, this means that they physically do not have any resources to spare, such as time or energy. Meanwhile, any innovation is always a huge effort, unpredictable in scope. Moreover, the probability of success is much lower than 50%. As a result, few are interested in playing these games. Finally, reason 3. Traditionally, innovation and ingenuity are believed to be the lot of the chosen few. And managers in a hierarchy learn to choose reliable solutions because they hate to risk anything. As a result, we get hype and cargo cults. There are such words as acceleration, hackathons, incubators, corporate venture funds. All of these words are thrown around for little reason. Trendy tools are introduced without a clear understanding of the problems that need solving, without the appropriate infrastructure, and without the appropriate changes of the corporate culture, which is necessary for any effect to take place. As a result, colossal resources are wasted with a very moderate outcome. The second but has to do with the fact that changes are contrary to the very nature of corporations, which are created to ensure the execution of regular, standard processes in a given quality range. So the products are standardized to the maximum. Corporations at the third stage of development, when the results have been stabilized and the tasks are clear, everything works okay, both owners and top management and the employees, the need for innovation seems irrelevant. As vivid examples, we could recall Kodak, which didn't want to develop digital photography, which they'd invented, or Microsoft, which did not believe in the internet and finally and had to catch up with the market. And the latest example is Sears, which went bankrupt in 2018. It is once the largest US retailer who failed to adapt to the quickly changing market. Therefore, there are three requirements to systemic change in the company. First, since innovation is always expensive, we need to teach the companies to innovate only where it is absolutely necessary. We cannot base this approach on individual visionary talents because we need to innovate at all hierarchy levels. Average employees need to make managerial decisions. So what we need is a transferable methodology of managerial decision making in the conditions of a high uncertainty. And this methodology should be appropriate for all levels of the corporate hierarchy. It is not enough to set the right innovation tasks. You need to be able to solve them as well. Therefore, the second necessary element is a technique for overcoming obstacles on the way to the goals. So, a tool for solving non-trivial or inventive tasks. And finally, as we said, a corporation needs formalized procedures to manage the innovation process, essentially the mechanisms of forcing the company to stay on the innovation track, because companies are always reluctant to stay there. After formalizing these requirements, we decided to take a look at the existing methods of change management. So I give the floor to Alexander Savinkov, one of our team members, who is an expert with over a dozen years of experience in consulting leading companies in Russia, Europe, and the US on strategy development. Alexander, you have the floor. Hello, colleagues. As Nikolai said, traditionally the function of adaptation to external and internal changes in the company is performed by the company's strategic division or its surrogate in the form of the headquarters, the CEO office, or a team of top management. So we decided to check whether the methods used by these subdivisions meet the requirements for systematic approach Nikolai spoke about. To that end, we selected three of the most popular techniques used by large corporations. Of course, methods abound, but we focused on three. The balanced scorecard, also called in later versions execution premium process. Then objectives and key results, OKR. And finally, objectives, goals, strategies, and methods, OGSM. As you can see from the table, Each method was developed within a framework of well-known commercial and educational institutions for more than a dozen years, several dozen years even, and is used at least in several very large corporations. Since the methods have been developing for 30 years or more, we expected to see within their framework a developed toolkit for organizing systematic change management. Despite their age, in fact, none of the strategic management methodologies we analyzed contains developed tools for creating the content of strategies. On the other hand, all of the three methodologies feature a multitude of mechanisms for organizing a quality strategic or change management process. If we compare the state of these methods with TRIZ tools, the picture will be the opposite. Although TRIZ has established itself in the areas of problem setting and solving, even though most members of strategic departments in corporations are unaware of that. Initially, however, TRIZ didn't focus on the improvement on corporate innovation processes specifically. The result of our research was a hybrid methodology that combines the best of both strategic management techniques and TRIZ tools. My colleagues will now cover it in more detail. Thank you, Alexander. So we're going to speak about the concept called intensive evolution system. To meet the above-mentioned requirements for systematic change management, we proposed a three-component approach, as could be expected. So component one is the system of engaging managers through the Program of Innovation Development, or IDP. The mechanism of the IDP was described in detail at TRIZ Summit 2020, and you can view the materials by following the link. We're not going to dwell on them today to save time. I will only focus on the main point, the inclusion of IDP in all managers' KPIs, or key performance indicators. This way, first, the IDP development provides objective grounds and sets uniform rules for the assessment of the manager's efficiency in terms of innovation management. So this is the documented basis for the comparison of their performance. Second, this work becomes a regular cross-cutting process that involves the entire organization. Third, the implementation of an IDP creates a real and not an artificially imposed demand for TRIZ specialists. After the development of the IDP, the department is faced with a whole set of inventive problems. Importantly, all of these problems are directly related to the success, so senior managements face the need for problem solvers. We will address the experience of this work later on. Nikolai Fomenko will do it. The second component is the special course for top managers, that is established at a professional minimum. We start from the presumption that the top manager is required to identify the development of the system and to find the factors that impede this development. And finally, to set the tasks to eliminate them. They are inventive problems as such. Completing these steps is, in fact, the development of an IDP. These tasks can be solved by TRIZ tools, but in the form as it is taught now, TRIZ is not suitable for managers and even less so for top managers, because it takes a lot of time and effort to master. Few of the managers are ready to spend at least 72 hours, and it is the shortest available course, in our perimeter at least, to master the methodology. And besides, we know that many of the tools within this course are not relevant to them. To eliminate this problem, we developed a method for effective decision-making based on only 4 TRIZ tools. And we managed to squeeze this presentation into a special 22-hour course. In brief, the approach that we teach to managers includes the following methodically described steps. First, identify and finalize goals. Define the boundaries of the system, the supersystem elements that require consideration, components, objects to process, etc., system operators, you name it. Third, identify the stakeholders or their requirements. Fourth, identify the key parameters of success. Then identify the limiting factors of their development and to formulate tasks to eliminate or overcome the limiting factors. Nikolai, my apologies, you have 5 more minutes. Thank you, I'll do my best. Dmitry, I'll have to hurry up a little bit because I've been too slow. Can I have 2 more minutes? Okay, so component number 3, preparing TRIZ specialists or problem solvers. Yelena Rudkolis addressed this point at TRIZ Summit in 2019 in Minsk. You can also watch the video by following the link. So we have a system here that includes 3 components: organizational event measures on implementing the IDP, and then implementing a special course for managers in problem solving, and finally, a course for TRIZ specialists, problem solvers, who are going to focus on this particular kind of work in the future. Fourth, we're going to speak about the concept of IDP at the example of the gas group experience. Alexei, the floor goes to you. Hello, dear colleagues. I'm the head of TRIZ in the gas group. In Russia, our company needs no introduction, and for our foreign colleagues, I will explain it in just one slide. We're the nation's leading manufacturer of commercial vehicles. We have 40,000 employees. We have 13 production sites in different cities. We produce trucks and buses and export them to 40 countries of the world. We have 9 full-time TRIZ specialists with the highest level of certification 4. We've been working at the gas group for 3 years, and we're consistently introducing TRIZ by embedding it into the corporation's key business processes, including strategy development. Next slide. To that end, the entire top management, including the president of the gas group, took the special training course Nikolai mentioned. Next slide. Our TRIZ specialists are now in the 3rd year of training. We have trained over 100 people, with some of them taking the 400-hour training program for professional inventive problem solvers. As a result, in March 2020, a TRIZ department was created at the gas automobile plant, one of the largest divisions of the gas group, to include the specialists who had scored high during the training. Work is underway to create similar departments in other business units and large divisions as staff is being trained. And speaking of the third aspect, the development of IDPs is included in the matrix of key performance indicators approved by the president of the group. That is, each manager must identify the system they're responsible for, the key parameters that characterize it, the development limits of the system according to the selected parameters, and finally, the contradictions and limiting factors that prevent the system from achieving and exceeding its limits. As an example, the slide shows the work of one department. Its strategic goal for 2020 was to reduce the cost of a certain vehicle model drastically. Meanwhile, instead of the usual problem setting, to reduce the cost by an item by X rubles, we set the problem of assessing the full cost reduction potential. For this, the team selected 640 key components. 8 enterprises formed working groups involving a total of over 100 people. And even though the engineers had been improving the vehicle design for over a decade before our engagement, we analyzed probably 1/3 of the potential and managed to save 5.8% of direct production costs, which amounts to hundreds of millions of economic benefits per year. Next slide, please. The summary. We have trialed the technique on real problems and seen the demand among management. The only bottleneck for us now is the shortage of competent TRIZ specialists to deploy the system on all gas group sites that are ready for implementation. And now Nikolai will tell you how we hope to remedy this situation. Nikolai, the floor is yours. Yes, thank you. Indeed, the only thing stopping us from scaling up is the shortage of specialists. We found out quite early that we won't be able to remedy the situation quickly at most enterprises, so now our activities have gone beyond the group. In 2019, we established the Association of TRIZ Professionals in order to expand the community of professional problem solvers and facilitate the training of such specialists. We also launched a closed club of TRIZ professionals, and we use this club to discuss the methodological nuances of the use of TRIZ tools, their adaptation to certain industries and businesses. And we also hope to launch TRIZ Sandbox within the club, and it will be an open thing where we would like to see everyone who's interested in TRIZ and to solve problems. So it is the light version of the club, if you will. And we're also working on an online course for individual training so that you could then join our sandbox and then be ready for working in the field, for working with actual businesses and solving their problems. Thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you for your attention. We will be happy to answer your questions. Dear colleagues, I applaud your timely manner of delivering the presentation. Frankly, I did not believe that you would be able to deliver it without any losses in quality, but you managed to do this, so my congratulations to you. Dear colleagues, please enter your questions in the chat, and I will start with my own question, which has a practical value as it pertains to my own work. It regards the implementation of innovation KPIs for top managers. I'm going to ask it to Nikolai Sonin because he illustrated this aspect of activity. Formally speaking, from general consideration, there is a certain contradiction between a manager's KPI related to their primary functions, primary roles in terms of their business activity or manufacturing process, and KPIs related to development, to growth, because any manager only has 24 hours a day and they cannot spread themselves too thin to remedy all the situations. And besides, the company needs to keep cutting costs and to keep moving towards a larger efficiency, but then the company has to stop and to implement change. So have you encountered such contradictions in the problems that you addressed, and how did you resolve it? Dmitry, thank you so much. This is actually the primary question that you ask yourself in this line of activity. But we believe we have been able to make some inroads at resolving this contradiction. The very working principle of the IDP allows for the regulation of time, the time management for those who want to pursue innovation activities. As a manager creates the program of innovation development for next year, they include the tasks that they need to address in order to achieve a certain breakthrough, to stay in the market, to conquer the new segment, depending on the goals of their division, of their department. And as they approve this program with their superiors realize the value of these objectives and can allocate some extra resources, maybe 50% of their working time, maybe 20% or 10% of their working time. So this is up to their superiors. What matters here is that managers are faced with a conscious choice of distributing their time and distributing their resources. Our position is that innovation is not great innovation is something that should be kept to a minimum because we need specific results, and we only need to innovate when it's absolutely necessary. I hope I have answered your question. Yes, thank you. Let's take a look at what questions we have in the chat. Well, apart from those asking for the addresses of your closed and semi-closed clubs, a question from Hans-Gert Grebe: is there a relation to the CCMI approach in programming enterprises? I believe that we would ask you to decipher your abbreviation because it was not included in the presentation. Can you please expand the abbreviation? Dmitry, I beg your pardon. I believe there is a typo here, and what Hans meant was CMMI. So a question from Sigrid Weigert. Trees is an expensive long-term investment. Managers need to understand it to fund it. And once they got the point, they will love it. Okay, that's not a question. I completely support this point of view, Dmitry. In fact, it took us 2 years for people at the corporation to begin understanding us. We need to start by solving local problems to show the benefits of our approach and to win trust. Once you have their trust, you can start implementing change at the goal setting level. Okay, so we can see an answer from Hans-Gert Grebe. CMMI, capability maturity model. Are you familiar with this concept? Have you worked with it in any way? Alexander, would you like to comment? Yes, indeed. We are familiar with this concept, but we haven't used it in our work. We haven't needed to. If Mr. Hans-Gert Grebe can give us a hint as to how we can benefit from using it, we might. And probably the last question from the chat. Is there any kind of impact of your project on the culture of the gas company? We believe it's about corporate culture. Yes, thank you. Hopefully, yes. Probably this is a question that we should ask to the HR manager of our group, to the HR director. And what I can say is that we're working closely with them, and they are responding very positively to our tools. For instance, we are running a major acceleration project that we started preparing before the pandemic, and the pandemic slowed us down a little bit as we had to switch to the online format, which wouldn't have been possible even a year ago. And this acceleration program that we're now implementing, Alexei may correct me, includes over 60 projects, 63 projects. We received 63 applications. Nikolai, let me comment, please. I once entered the corporate cafeteria and I had a feeling that I entered Starbucks, and I was wondering what was the sentiment behind this. I realized that I saw two guys at the next table who applied for this acceleration program, and they are starting to discuss how they're going to move their technology to new markets. So what we are seeing within the company is a process of innovation, and it's a great shift. This is wonderful. I congratulate you on this informal but very valuable result. Colleagues, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your answers. We wish you the best of luck in your endeavors. Again, we listened to a presentation from a leading team of TRIZ specialists at one of Russia's leading corporations. This is a flagship project that we're all following closely at the edge of our seats, and we wish the best of success to this wonderful team. Dear colleagues, please stop sharing your screen.